7 years ago, this exact shot sent Toronto and pretty much all of Canada into absolute delirium. Kawhi Leonard delivered them their first NBA championship soon after, and then proceeded to walk out the door, landing him in LA before the confetti even settled. But 2 weeks ago, the story looked like it was about to come full circle. Kawhi was officially heading back to Toronto, and as far as I knew, the deal was pretty much done. Kawhi Leonard and Scottie Barnes was set out to be the new dynamic duo in the East. And then today, 3 days after the trade was supposed to become official, the NBA stepped in and said, nah, not quite yet. So what happened? And why is a trade that both teams already agreed to sitting in legal limbo? Well, as most of you can already guess, it has to do with aspiration. Yup. The Kawhi scandal that still hasn't been solved in like a year. But what does that actually mean for Kawhi and Toronto? Well, first we have to rewind to June 30th. The Clippers and Raptors agree in principle, which is the important part, on one of the biggest trades of the entire 2026 offseason. Toronto sends out Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, a 2027 first-round pick swap, and 2 second-round picks. And in return, the Raptors get just Kawhi Leonard. Now, you might be asking yourself, why did the Raptors give up such a big haul of assets for an aging, injury-prone superstar? And I wouldn't blame you because that's what everyone was asking. But the answer is pretty goddamn simple. They think they can win. And who can blame them? The best player on their team, Scottie Barnes, has been playing at an all-star level these last couple of years. Last season, they were able to string together 46 wins and pushed one of the eventual Eastern Conference Finals team to 7 games. And it looks like to me that they believe if they had Kawhi Leonard instead of Brandon Ingram in the postseason last year, they probably would have at least made the Eastern Conference Finals. Which is probably right because Brandon Ingram played terribly. As for the Clippers side, this was pretty much the last move they had to do before, ending their championship window. Harden and Zubac already moved at the deadline, so they just had to get rid of Kawhi to officially start their rebuild. And on paper, both front offices had already committed, and that was supposed to be finalized the moment the July moratorium lifted, but that didn't happen. And once again, because of that pesky aspiration scandal. For anyone that's unfamiliar, here's a quick recap. Back in September of 2025, Pablo Torre, on his own investigative podcast, dropped a bombshell. His reporting alleged that Kawhi Leonard had signed a $28 million deal with Aspiration, a tree planting company that was coincidentally also a Clippers sponsor. The catch, though, is that Kawhi Leonard, according to the reporting, did essentially nothing for all of that money. No campaign, no promotional obligation, not even an Instagram post. They just paid him $28 million for the fun of it. At least that's what he'd like us to believe. But it gets worse. The Clippers owner Steve Ballmer was reportedly a major investor in Aspiration and had invested tens of millions of dollars around the same window that Kawhi Leonard's deal got signed. The theory being, of course, that this really wasn't an endorsement at all and that it was a workaround to pay Kawhi extra money outside the boundaries of the salary cap, using a sponsor as the middleman, which is, of course, against the rules. Now that story became huge and the NBA couldn't just ignore it. So last September, the league began investigating whether or not the Clippers purposely circumvented the cap using Aspiration. As you can imagine, the Clippers are in total denial. Their position is that they actually were scammed by Aspiration themselves and that no money was ever funneled to Leonard to dodge the cap. And for nearly 10 months, the NBA's investigation hung over the organization's head, and we sat here as fans patiently waiting for a bombshell to drop. But that literally never happened. Until today. Kinda. Because both the Clippers and Raptors put out statements explaining exactly why this deal isn't closing yet, and the reasoning is pretty hilarious. According to Toronto's statement, the NBA league office told them that if they finalize the trade now, the Raptors would be the ones assuming all of the risk of whatever comes out of the Aspiration investigation. Meaning that, yeah, if Kawhi ends up suspended or hit with some other penalty tied to the cap, that consequence lands directly on Toronto, a team that had nothing to do with the alleged wrongdoing in the first place. instead of the LA Clippers. And as you can imagine, the Raptors don't want anything to do with that. So their statement says that they'll simply wait until the investigation wraps up before finalizing anything, while stressing that they're still fully committed to bringing Kawhi back. The Clippers, on the other hand, are still sticking to their story. Their statement reiterates that they fully cooperated with the league, having sat for dozens of interviews, turning over tens of thousands of documents, and again frames themselves as victims of Aspirations fraud. So right now we have a trade that's been agreed to by both front offices, and both of them publicly want it to happen, but literally nothing's happening because the Raptors are not willing to pay that price. And as for when this is going to be resolved, nobody actually knows. There are some reports that they hope the issue is resolved next week, but we've heard variations of that for months now. And what I find really funny is that this isn't like the league blocking the trade or voiding a contract. They're pretty much telling both teams that you guys can do whatever you guys want to do with Kawhi Leonard, but whoever has him at the end of the day, they're the ones that's going to have to take the blame. But yeah, that's where we're currently at. Kawhi Leonard is still a Clipper on paper, but a Raptor in spirit. And that's going to be the case until the league finally makes a decision on this case that they've been working on for like a year. But this whole thing doesn't make it a little bit more interesting, because the question isn't whether or not the trade is going to happen now, because I think no matter what, it's going to happen. But if the NBA's investigation does end up with a punishment, will it actually reshape the deal before it finally closes? Who knows? Also, I'm curious, what happens if the NBA doesn't make their decision before the season starts? Is Kawhi Leonard just going to be in limbo until like the midseason or something? I need more answers. Anyways, I cannot wait until this scandal is finally dealt with and we find out what the NBA ultimately decides. Because even though everyone's out there looking for blood, in my opinion, every single team does this, and the NBA secretly knows that they do. And they don't really care as long as they don't caught. But the Clippers got caught. So now the NBA has to pretend they care. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe. Why did I do all this weird hand movement? Ah!